Have you ever given yourself or received psychic damage from a comment you've heard? Like, as an example, on my way here, I was having a bit of imposter syndrome.
Okay.
And normally I keep the deprecating comments in my head, but I decided to say it out loud this time.
Don't even think them.
And about halfway through, I felt the psychic damage take effect.
Nice. I have been friends with Adam for more than 30 years. Yes. Yes, I have taken psychic...
That's just abuse.
That's just, well, it's self-imposed at this point. But no,
Stockholm Syndrome?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, Adam's a great guy. I love him. He's one of my best friends. But he is far wittier than I am sometimes, and I make myself far too easy of a target. So it's a little bit of my fault. It's a little bit of him just being, just knowing what buttons to hit from 30 years of friendship. Right, Terry?
Have I ever taken psychic damage from a comment I've heard? I think a lot of years ago I did, and then I went through this phase. Dan will know this. Where I now don't let anybody speak badly about themselves ever.
Oh, no.
And even if somebody gives me a negative comment, I'm like fucking bulletproof with this stuff. Like, if somebody says something to me, I'll look at them, scan them up and down like a Terminator, and be like, well, you're not shit. So see you later. Like that, but I think it, and I don't say it out loud because I like to be a nice person. But I'm very, I took a conscious step to decide that people will not hurt me with words anymore. Yeah. And I don't let it happen.
Well, you are the like cheerleader of the podcast. Like if we're ever in our Discord or something and I say something self-deprecating or James says something self-deprecating, you're the first one up there. And like you're relatively quiet in the Discord, but it's like a moth to bright light. You hear someone talking down about themselves, you're like, bitch, no, you're great, you're beautiful, you're smart, everyone loves you, and you're capable. Shut up and sit down.
There's two things about this. One is, I think you should speak to yourself the same way that you would speak to your best friend. If something goes wrong, no, but I mean, like, okay.
See my aforementioned conversation about Adam.
Okay, so Dan, say if I showed up here tonight, and I had a pretty good day, I told you about, but if I had a fucking awful day, if things went wrong, you wouldn't say, well, Terry, that's because you're shit at everything you do, and undoubtedly you're going to fail in your life. You'll help me realize that there may be other things, that I'm still a good person most of the time. And that, you'll help me along, right? Then the other thing is, misery likes company. And for some reason, nerds love sitting around talking about how fucking depressed they are all the time. And it's like they sit in a metaphorical room and we all talk about how sad we are. And nobody goes, hey, maybe things can be better. Maybe we all don't sit around and talk about how shit everything is. And we consciously try and help each other. And I'm sorry if that's what I'm trying to do.
Oh, nothing to apologize for.
No apology needed.
It's a Mimic, the round table Dungeons & Dragons discussion, where you never know what you're going to get.
Welcome to another episode in our conversation on playable races. I'm Dan, and with me today are James and Terry, and this episode is called Dragonborn, Hooked on Draconics. Like hooked on phonics?
Really?
What's phonics? Like Stereophonics, the band?
No, like...
Oh, Terry.
Oh, you're so British right now.
You're so British.
In North America in the 90s, there was a thing called Hooked on Phonics, where it was like kids would go and use phonetical teaching. I don't even know if phonetical's a word. You're welcome, Adam.
Phonetical is a word.
They would use phonetics to teach them how to read, right?
Oh, yeah. Kids nowadays learn whole words.
Really?
That's the new method of teaching from what I understand. And
pretty
it
much
seems terrible.
I mean, our kids, we've taught them through phonetics a little bit as well to read, but like there were legit commercials on TV. You'd be watching Saturday morning cartoons, and there would be this like spunky 8-year-old who would hop onto the computer, onto the TV screen and be like, "Hooked on Phonics worked for me," right? And it was such a like catchy little thing that like all of us as kids loved it. So yeah. That is what this title is a reference
Hooked
to.
On Phonics.
Hooked on Phonics.
Phonics sounds like a new drug.
Kind of does, hey?
Words are a drug. You can find anything with them.
Good point, yeah.
Good point. In our conversations about playable races in D&D 5e, we've covered every other playable race in the Player's Handbook except for today's topic. We've even covered those weird elven races like the Drow, Eladrin, Sea Elves, and Shadar Kai, as well as the bajillion types of humans of the Forgotten Realms. And some interesting alternative sub-races that are listed in some of the other books. You can find all of these episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and dozens of other podcast apps, or you could jump over to YouTube and dig into the entire playlist called off to the races that we've built there. This episode, though, is going to focus on the different kinds of Dragonborn that is available in D&D 5e. So guys, just real quick, before we get into it, before we start formulating opinions, have you ever played a Dragonborn up until this point?
Never.
I have.
You have?
Sat next to James, actually.
Yes.
Oh, really? What kind of Dragonborn? What class?
I played Slythe Skinner, the Dragonborn druid. I think he was green Dragonborn or black.
Copper.
No, definitely not.
I thought you were...
Always chromatic. Always chromatic.
Always chromatic, really?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that one later for sure.
Yeah. I think he was green. He was green.
I'm pretty sure the stories you've told about him, he was
druid.
Green.
Yeah. I accidentally played Starscream. I didn't realize that's what I was doing.
Well, that's okay. My last character was
out.
accidentally Jamaican, so I mean, it works.
That's fine. He was a great Irish dwarf.
I played a silver Dragonborn paladin named Rezu in our last campaign.
Yeah.
And I've had like 6 or 7 Dragonborn in my history playing. I usually end up playing a Dragonborn barbarian because I like that feel of them. But they are, without a doubt, one of my favorite races in the Player's Handbook.
Mm-hmm.
And also, without a doubt, are one of the weakest. And
right.
We're gonna talk about that in just a minute.
Feels like they shouldn't be, though.
They shouldn't be. They should be one of the most powerful. They are from Dragon.
Yeah.
So why would they be this lackluster?
Because their blood is so polluted, is the way I take it.
Except it's not here.
So far.
Here, we're going to get into it because they are not half dragons. They have that mysterious background, but it's clearly stated that they're not the result of any horny bards given the green gown to some young red-scaled barmaid. No, these aren't half dragons, but a fully created race, not unlike Warforged, who are intended to take the best traits of both dragons and humanoids and blend them together in a wondrous mixture of both. So they're not half dragons. They are a completely unique, fully formed, created as such race.
They took too much human then. Which is another race I don't play.
Yeah.
I love humans. I love humans.
I hate humans as a race.
Oh, because I understand them so much more.
I am a human. Why would I want to play one in my fantasy world?
Great point, and that's really how I should be looking at it.
Yeah. But anyways, so who were they created by is the great mystery. Either the gods or just some hyper-powerful dragons created Dragonborn. I, for one, think it's the gods because what dragon would want to taint their bloodline with humanoid blood is my thought. Right? So I think this is a separate race created by the gods. Now, because of that, and this reinforces the fact that probably the gods made them, is by the lore, technically in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, this is where we get controversial right off the bat, they lack both wings and tails. Neither exist on the stock.
Dragonborn don't have tails?
Dragonborn don't have tails. Stock PHB Dragonborn.
Yeah. Feels wrong, doesn't it?
It does. It does feel wrong.
Do they have like a human buttocks?
I would assume yes. It's just scaly.
I would assume they just have a lizard head and are covered in scales, similar to the creatures from Skyrim.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the scales are like very small, flexible scales. They point out.
Like a snake skin, right?
They're not broad dragon scales like a horned lizard, right? They're not something big like that. Now, for the tails, I personally see no reason why you can't just include them. However, I would say don't, because then you start to blend the line between Dragonborn and lizard folk, which there should be more difference between them than just how their brains operate. Which, if the second you give them both tails, the entire difference is breath weapon and mental ability, right?
Well, no, they still look different, though.
They still look different, but for
a halfling looks different to a gnome, but arguably could be quite similar.
Yeah, right. But I mean, you have distinct things that really draw them apart. Lizard folk speak Draconic. Lizard folk worship dragons, kind of like Dragonborn do, right? Dragonborn have this affinity to dragonkind. So do lizard folk. Both of them.
So do kobolds.
So do
kobolds have tails. So
kobolds
don't they make them big kobolds at the very least if you give Dragonborn tails.
Exactly.
And doesn't that affect some lore of some of the expanded books?
Yes, it really does. I mean, Wildmount not counted. We will talk about what is offered there later. There has been some expansion done because the Player's Handbook Dragonborn are incredibly weak compared to other races, right? Just mechanically. And we will be talking about the mechanics after we talk about some more of the flavor stuff.
Imagine a player handbook with a player handbook player handbook Dragonborn with the player's handbook Ranger.
You would be one of the weakest classes in the game. Like combinations in the game, for sure. Anyways, the main difference between a lizard folk and a Dragonborn, other than the tail, is their very distinct Draconic heritage, mainly in their coloring. Now, you would suspect that if you were to play a Dragonborn, you're going to play a green Dragonborn and your pure green scales, everything else. Or you're a copper Dragonborn and your pure copper. That is not actually the case when it comes to a lot of Dragonborn. The common Dragonborn, their small, flexible scales are more muddled. A mixture of metallic and chromatic colorings. You'll see things like rusty colored or a copper green or a silver blue or a white with edgings of brass. However, there are some noble clans, and we'll talk more about the clans in a sec, that I do it all the fucking time.
Yeah.
So there are some more noble clans of Dragonborn, however, that have brighter, more defined colorings like solid reds or golds or blues or bronzes. These clans tend to be more boastful and proud about their Draconic heritage as well, right? They'll be more outspoken about it. So speaking of clans, to Dragonborn, the clan is paramount to everything, including deific devotion. Dragonborns are an honor-based society, and like other examples that we see like medieval England or Imperial Japan or even some tribes in Eastern Africa, an individual's actions will reflect on the clan as a whole, whether that's good or bad. Every single Dragonborn knows its place in its clan and how to fulfill the duties of its individual place. They as a race are driven to self-improvement and self-sufficiency. They hate personal failure, seeing it as shameful, and will pursue perfection in their chosen path no matter what. They will often choose a skill to master, often becoming friends with masters from other races through this pursuit. So they're not as isolationist or as individual as a traditional dragon would be, but they seek to master these skills. And usually that thirst for knowledge or more improvement is what causes these clans to reach out to the other races. Okay? One more note about the clans. Dragonborn on an individual level, as I said before, strive for self-sufficiency. When they need help, they will turn to their clan first before going to any other outside source. If their clan cannot help them, they will seek the help from another Dragonborn clan next. If that doesn't work, only failure there will draw them to ask outside the clan, including the gods, for help. So
they'll ask another Dragonborn clan before they even pray for help.
Pretty much, yeah. If you want that hyper practical, atheistic almost level of player character race, Dragonborn are it. They are very driven to perfection and self-improvement and all that other stuff. They're not going to be relying on faith to build themselves up. They're not going to be relying on faith for help. It's not a crutch to them. Now, you'll have clerics, you'll have ministers, you'll have that who are Dragonborn, but their faith is a very practical faith, right? It's not going to be a, reveling in the mysteries of Pelor's light. It's not, there's going to be none of that, right? It's my God serves this purpose for me for this reason, right? And Dragonborn kind of set their own terms and just expect people to be okay with it, okay? They're a very, very noble race. Now, when it comes to their nobility and stuff, you see this translated even more into their naming conventions. Dragonborn naming is also a source of some of that slight Eastern feel into the baseline of D&D, like we've seen with the shame and honor-based cultures. Their surnames always come first. Surnames are always followed by their given name, which is often given in their youth, not necessarily their birth, and often is either a term of endearment, a reference to an event, a simple nickname, or a nod to a habit. Okay? So if you are the Red Dragonborn nose picker, guess what? That name's a very...
You went with a better habit than I think both Jim.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah. That's a different kind. That's a different kind of Dragonborn. So following the given name would be any titles like giving our lawyers that Esquire thing, or any sort of note of education at the end, or even Lord, King, Emperor, whatever that is, that would all go at the end. Now, if you want an example, my Dragonborn that Terry knows, and is the reason I think Adam sat this one out because he didn't want me to say the name.
Right.
Was Zephyric Resu Das Bahamaskari Anciel.
I remember you introducing this character, and I already fucking hated him.
Yeah.
As soon as he said the name, I just went, "Oh, fucking this guy." Because I imagine meeting this person. I would just go, "How fucking up your own ass do you have to be to have a name like that?"
But the thing is, with Dragonborn, it completely makes sense. Let me break down the name, because I actually did this with the name. His clan was the Zephyric clan, which was a clutch of pure silver, basically platinum Dragonborn. These guys were direct descendants from Bahamut. Okay. His name was Rezu, which I took to mean the word stricken or scarred, because he had a troubled past. I wrote like 18 pages of.
Of course you did.
You said D&D.
Yeah, but like he had like, because of his long life, he had many wives that he would just outlive.
Oh, okay.
Right, and he was committed to them during their life, but I mean, they lived to 80. He lived to be in his 400s.
Oh, Rezu is a sugar daddy.
Yeah, kinda.
That's what, because they say there's a little bit of us in all about D&D characters.
Not in this case.
You living vicariously through Rezu, weren't you?
Moving on.
We'll talk about your characters then.
Yeah. What about your grave robber that always had a breath that smelt of day-old coffee?
Slight that betrayed everyone at the drop of a hat.
I know. It's like, I think it's because my fantasy is to live like the Purge or something.
Okay.
So,
I mean, he did have a long-standing character that was married to a CrossFit chick, so...
no, the dream.
Yeah. Anyways, so Bahamut was a title marking him as a chosen of Bahamut, and Doran Ciel was a mark of honor, him being the oldest known Dragonborn in his region. So his name actually meant something. Eventually, he became the Grand Warden of the city that our party was based out of, and I legit got into a side conversation with Adam about where I could put the Grand Warden, because it didn't make sense to throw in the back. So Rezu just conceded to the human way of doing things, and it became Grand Warden, Zephyric Rezu Bahamut.
Even though Rezu probably thought that was ass backwards.
Oh, yeah. He saw no point in it, but at the same time, human lives are fleeting, and eventually this too shall pass.
And yeah, exactly.
After he poisons the well. Just like his wives.
He was a paladin. Like, he was
all
as
his
good
wives
as good could
suspiciously
get.
disappeared of old age.
One, he straight up murdered. It is a thing that...
See?
But that's because she was an evil cultist of Tiamat.
That's what he said.
She was 23. Her name was Candy. But she was really mature for her age.
I love you guys. Anyways, so now you may think if you had a red Dragonborn, the average human would run in fear, but that's not really the truth. Dragonborn, although rare, are common knowledge in the realms. So a Dragonborn with a traditionally evil dragon's coloring would just be seen with more caution than outright fear. Okay? That's something very important to take note of when it comes to how you're going to be flavoring your world's reactions to your Dragonborn PC's DMs.
Now, would this be people who are familiar with Dragonborn? Because if you were a red Dragonborn visiting somewhere where they are not familiar with Dragonborn, if a giant red dragon man showed up, I might still be afraid of that.
I think you would be wary, you'd be cautious, you'd keep your distance.
Yeah.
But that's caution. That's not straight up fear.
Well, it depends also how often a beast race walks through. If Dragonborn are the only beast race and they're 1 in 100,000, hell yeah, the whole town would be scared.
Yeah.
But if beast race just in general exists, and a Dragonborn, though you've never seen one show up, you're going to assume it's a beast race.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Like, they are few and far between in terms of population percentages in the rest of the world. So no matter what town you walk into, except for like a metropolis size thing, you will be taken note of walking in as a dragon.
Okay. But I mean, if it's somewhere that you've never been before, could it be understandable if I was playing the scene out and like the bartender is like shaking the cup as they're like putting the ale down in front of the Dragonborn? Terrified.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it depending on what kind of reaction, what kind of class, I'd say class would play into that as well.
It even comes down
like
to personality.
A Dragonborn bard, maybe not.
Yeah.
Right? A Dragonborn
barbarian, very much so.
Or warlock. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like a Dragonborn just like shrouded in like marks of Tiamat. You're not in the tavern because you got arrested at the gate and are now
you're in a fight at the gate. They're not arresting that.
Yeah, they're trying to murder.
They will try to murder you with everything they have.
So, okay, that's enough about the I don't want to do fucking disclaimers. Moving on. We're going to move on to their stats. Now, a Dragonborn is strong in both body and will. This translates mechanically to a +2 to strength and a +1 to charisma. And they live roughly, unless you have some weird story elements, which I had, they live roughly the same lifespan as a human, making it up to 80 years on average, but develop quickly, often walking hours after hatching, and yes, they do still hatch, and entering puberty around 3 years old before becoming fully formed adults at around 15 years of age.
Dragonborns hatch?
Yes.
I thought half dragons hatched and Dragonborn was live birth.
No. There are official rules for half dragons, but they're far less of a thing in 5th edition than they have been in previous editions.
Okay, questions about mating between the races here in D&D.
Between the races? Okay.
Will Dragonborn race?
Yeah.
Race?
No. I mean, like, are you going to be asking how a Dragonborn and a Halfling hook up?
I
would assume lube is involved.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, let's just easy to follow. Human Dragonborn. Because
their skin is kind of
human Dragonborn, call it a kink. Whatever.
Sure.
Somebody's willing to put it
By
in.
rules, is there even a half race of human Dragonborn in any of the materials that's not homebrew or bonus?
There are half dragons. Not half dragonborn.
Yeah.
There are half dragons.
There's got to be a half Dragonborn, sure.
Well, there'd be homebrew of it, but there's no official...
Well, it's just the same thing. Like, you don't have quarter elves.
Yeah.
And you don't have quarter orcs. Right? Like...
No, but that's not the same.
You don't have half dwarves.
We're talking two complete races. A Dragonborn.
But Dragonborn is supposedly a blended race of human
But what I'm saying is...
If a human and a Dragonborn got together, I would say the result would be a Dragonborn.
Yeah, that comes out of an egg.
That comes out of an egg.
A half Dragonborn comes out of an egg.
Yes.
I think it'd be full Dragonborn. Because 50% of your DNA
they would be full Dragonborn. I would agree.
Yeah. We're talking genetic-wise, 50% of your DNA comes from each parent.
Right.
So you would get your Dragonborn DNA being split off and get human DNA added back in.
Yeah.
So you just be a different flavor of Dragonborn with massively different facial features.
I'm saying you'd say okay.
Oh, I wouldn't
still be
say
half
that.
human, but you'd play.
I would say the Dragonborn genetic traits are dominant.
Yes.
Right. Far more so. Like
there's no turning that down. Is there?
No.
Right? Nobody's going. What is
except for the tail?
Well, I've seen some character art of Dragonborn that are just like they're basically Yuan-Ti pureblood, right? Yeah. They've got that like hint of scale around the back of their neck, right behind their ears. That's not what you're going to have with these guys. They are full on.
But your kid's coming out of an egg. If you're a human,
your kid's coming out of
an egg.
Yeah. It's going to be uncomfortable.
Female's the human.
But as no, I would say even still.
So that wouldn't work. It does not work that way.
Dude, we're playing in a game.
There's some kinks out there.
Okay. One. 3 dudes arguing about how something's getting born. Probably not the best experts on the subject. But I've seen birth. I have been secondhand. I've been in the room when it's happened twice. Once to twins. And
I almost went, but you got 3 kids down.
Yeah. And let me tell you, whether it's an egg or whether it's an egg or it's a human live birth, it's uncomfortable no matter what.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but I imagine... Okay.
Let's not go there anymore. Let's just leave it.
Know what? Write to us on the subreddit r/itsAmimic and tell us what you think. What does the product of a horny bard and a Dragonborn look like?
Or ask for Adam's opinion in the mailbag.
Yeah. Moving on, I'd like to note that Dragonborn are not the... I'd like to point out that Dragonborn are creatures of extremes. And this is displayed in kind of where their alignments naturally sit as a race. They have... that honor-based society, and all Dragonborn tend to be creatures of extremes because of that. They're also very aware of the constant eternal war between Bahamut and Tiamat, and thus, consciously, when they reach adulthood, pick a side, which will translate between good and evil. Okay? Now, this means you could have good red Dragonborns that serve Bahamut.
Losers.
Or you could have evil silver Dragonborn that serve Tiamat.
Good and evil are a matter of perspective.
Right.
Somebody's got to clean the bathroom.
With what D&D has been doing recently, that fluctuating view on what is good and what is evil is really displayed in Dragonborn.
It's how my last 2 major characters I've played, that they are considered lawful good, but if you look at it from an outsider, humanist perspective at least, they are fucking evil. Plain straight up evil. But from their point of view, all their actions are for a cause that they believe is righteous and just.
Mm-hmm.
So to them, they are not committing any crime that's wrong. They're doing what is necessary for their goal.
That's a good way to play it, because that's, especially these days, is everywhere. Where everybody's idea of good is different. And everybody's
it's
saying
always
to each other,
been,
what the
but we're
fuck are you
finally
doing?
realizing it.
Yeah. It gets really muddy now. Like, for me, when I play my games, alignment is fairly important. They are really doing away with alignment in 5e. We've seen with recent books where they're giving us monster stat blocks that straight up don't have the monster alignments in them. Right? I think that's one of the reasons why they're going in this, is because there is more of a fluid. Just play the characters you want to play the character. Both Adam and I hate this, because having alignments and them being clearly defined, like the good evil spectrum being sanctity of life, law and chaos being order and disorder, or anarchy, right? They're having clearly defined roles here helps us as DMs play them, and to remove them, you're replacing all the information you give out in 2 words. You're having to replace that in paragraphs of flavor text.
Yeah.
I think you can keep it, but done differently. Give the players the perspective of what good and evil is. Like, if my DM said to me, a cleric of the Church of Bahamut is the one that will be raiding you. So then I would have to say, well, they would see me as lawful evil. But because it's from my personal perspective,
See,
here's to give because everyone sees good and evil differently too.
I mean, yes.
But you broke it down well, because you said the sanctity of life.
Well, and here's the thing,
and
I think that James and I, as like just in our own philosophies as people, like I believe in like there's a straight up objective morality, right? And with that objective morality comes clear definitions of this. You may disagree, that's fine. We're still friends. We can have discourse about it. But it's
not now,
because not now. But like, I think when it comes to running D&D games, being more fluid with defined alignments helps.
I use alignment because it provides direction for the character. So even alignment is something you can argue for hours, and we don't need to do.
And we've had a couple episodes on it. We don't want to waste time.
But it gives you, as the player character, it gives you direction to follow. If you remove it, there's nothing to hold on to. Whether it's one player agrees with your definition of lawful evil or whatever. It's direction for you to follow through as that character.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. So let's go from a philosophical argument to just something straight up defined. We can all understand numbers. We like numbers.
Okay.
Every single Dragonborn will be taller than Terry. They are all 6 feet and over.
I just want it known to the world.
Not 5'11 3/4, but 6 feet and over. Averaging around 6.5 feet.
I wear those chunky sole sneakers. So
yeah, you're always wearing Skechers.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I'm always 6. I remember like work photos, where like the taller people had to go to the back. I would always go to the back row and always get kicked to the next row down. Like, you're not over 6. I'd be like, I'm fucking 6, right? It's just because this
that's
guy's...
why you start in the front row and they kick you to the back,
and they work your way back.
Yeah, you go stand beside the shortest person. They're like, no, you're too tall. Get to the fucking back.
I go stand next to 6'6" basketball
That's
player.
where you made your mistake.
And see, we live in a society where there are all these TikTok videos and stuff of like just like slowly lifting up that back, like the heel, just enough to A, pop out your butt, and 2, seem 2 inches taller.
Yeah.
Like, there are methods to give you that other
Don't
quarter
listen
inch.
to those people.
That's how Terry gets 5'11 and a half.
All those girls have got anterior tilt. They're fucked.
Oh, yeah. So they also range from 300 pounds and greater when you come to an average Dragonborn. These guys are big and heavy, even your scrawny ones. Okay? Now, when you are choosing a Dragonborn, the next best thing, the thing you are choosing them the most for, is now, and that is choosing your Draconic ancestry. Now, this should reflect majorly in your scale coloring, regardless of how muddled your particular coloring may be.
You're going to say cuddling, then.
Yes. Now, your chosen color will give you elemental resistance to the corresponding element and a breath weapon that will mimic a dragon's breath, okay? Which is a big thing. So we're going to have to talk about that in a minute. I'm going to have to say that one disclaimer. It's just going to have to be in there.
You could just leave that out. That's a big thing.
Dan hasn't
move on.
followed any of the rules.
No.
My voice just broke over the internet as well, so we'll look forward to that
Say
later.
it again so you don't have to have that in there.
Dan hasn't followed any of the rules.
So this would be the spot where we normally talk about dragon's breath weapons, but seeing as they are a massive reason of why you'd play a Dragonborn, we're going to break down those mechanics a little bit later. Finally, the last thing you get with Dragonborn are your languages, Common and Draconic. And it says here specifically, Draconic is seen as one of the oldest known languages with heavy application to the creation and study of magic. This means that your magical runes, in my opinion, are always in Draconic.
I feel like either always in Draconic or derived from Draconic. And I also think you should be able to, with Draconic being one of the oldest languages, it would be a root language. So you should be able to pull other, not maybe full sentences, maybe not even like full paragraphs, but the gist of some other languages together.
Like you can with like romantic languages.
English,
Spanish,
like when you're English and you listen to Dutch, you'll hear every like fourth or fifth word that you're like, I know exactly what that is. And when you're not paying attention and you hear like this background noise, you think you know what they're talking about. And as soon as you pay attention, you're like, I don't, but it's enough like English. So if you knew German as well, you'd be able to pick up more of the language.
Yeah.
So I feel like Draconic should be a root language like that.
100% I agree. Dwarven should be, Elven should be, and Common shouldn't be.
No.
Common, although Common is not a root language.
I feel like most races already have Common, and I think it's because it's amalgamated from so many other languages.
In previous editions, I'm not sure if it's that way in 5th edition, but in previous editions, Orcish was based off the Dwarven script. Like their written script was based off Dwarvish, because the Orcish language was always just spoken. There was no written form until they started to interact more with their hated enemy dwarves, and thus they had to pick up how to say their words with those letters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they could send them "fuck you" letters.
It's like, honestly, it's like in Chinese, in Mandarin Chinese, it's pinyin, I think. It is the English letter written out version of the Chinese words,
right?
And that's where you see like 1.5 million of their different accents and whatnot that are on the letters to be able to get the right inflection of how to say it. But you could read Chinese with a Western frame of mind,
right?
Because of that, you would have no idea what you're saying, because you're going from a pictographic language to a spoken primary language. So it's very, very different. But I like to apply these kind of concepts into my D&D games, right? So Draconic, you may not understand what the word means, even as a wizard, but you understand that this comes from the Draconic, and because it comes from Draconic, those runes carry power. Okay,
right.
So, we're gonna move on to grab some dice. I got a couple questions to ask.
Ooh, green.
So let's roll initiative, and then we'll go through the questions one by one.
Great.
15.
4.
All right.
Sucketary.
So,
name of my sex tape.
First question I want to answer is, what are things that players should be aware of when role-playing a Dragonborn? Okay? This idea of the focus of the clans, I think, is a massive part of role-playing a Dragonborn. This idea of self-improvement and mastery of a singular skill, I think, is massive when it comes to playing a Dragonborn. You need that level of focus. Note, nowhere in here is pride. Nowhere in here is lording yourself over the other races. You seek to become a master of your skill. You by no means consider yourselves better. Even though you're a dragon, you do not consider yourselves better than the rest of the races, right? They have other things to give you and help you to reach mastery, so you're more than willing to go to them. But at the end of the day, you serve the clan, and you have your role in the clan, be it as a blacksmith or whatever it is, and you will draw on their advice to help the clan and better yourself at the end of the day, right? These are the most clearly defined honor-based culture in D&D 5e, at least so far as the base BHB goes. So look at your feudal Japan. to see exactly how a Dragonborn clan would work. Right. James?
Well, I'm going to touch on what we were talking about earlier with, as you said, the number of Dragonborn is usually fairly low. But I think that is something you should really take into consideration with your particular DM. Because I know some DMs who really like having Dragonborn in the world, so they're relatively common. Yeah. So they have, as normal, clans everywhere of their particular chromatic type. And that would lead into what class or player color you're playing and how they interact with the world. Because if a town is near a clan of Red Dragon, for example, and they have problems with them, you as a Red Dragonborn coming in will automatically cause problems.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Or if they're really good to them and they love those Dragonborn, you may be lofted above your allies, taken to the nicest room for free, given free food, given free items, but your allies are put to the wayside because they're not Dragonborn. So taking a look into that and taking that into consideration with your DM would be an interesting way too.
Yeah.
Right.
Terry?
The big one I want to put across here is you look like a fucking Dragonborn. And I think this gets missed by DMs. Why is there no wanted posters in D&D anywhere ever?
There is in my games.
Well, that's brilliant. I love that, right?
Yeah,
because easily recognizable characters I'm all about that. And if you walk through a marketplace and you have not been stealthy at all, everybody saw you. Everybody saw you. So when you start doing the bad things and things go wrong and we do whatever and the people are looking for, everybody knows you. Everybody fucking knows you. And when you go up, any situation you go in, you're easily remembered. People may not fear you right away, but they will certainly remember you and they'll be cautious and you will be treated differently.
Yeah.
If you are a giant fucking dragon man. And not that there's anything wrong with that and you shouldn't be picked on by wrong with that, I mean that you shouldn't be picked on within the game just because you're a Dragonborn, but socially, it's going to change things for you. It's going to change things for you right from the beginning. And the more you lean into that, the more interesting the game is.
Cool.
So my thing is you look like a giant fucking dragon man. Remember that.
Yeah. What do you think would be the most problematic about playing a Dragonborn with using the standard lore here? For me, we already had a discussion about it, that topic of parentage. How exactly you came to be, I don't know. There are mentions of a lot of inbreeding when it comes to Dragonborn, and it not quite having the same effect that it does on the more common humanoid races. I
think it's pretty common for lizard type creatures in our world anyway.
So I don't think there is a problem. Like, I don't think a Dragonborn would have a problem marrying his sister as much as we think that's gross, right?
As long as his mother didn't marry her brother a few times up.
Well, even then, that's a human issue. Is that we don't do that because everybody comes out with 6 toes and they go full Joffrey. But like,
wait, that you guys only have 5 toes.
But the thing is, like we've already mentioned, the Dragonborn are also incredibly rare.
Yeah.
So you don't have clans of thousands. You have clans of maybe tens, right? Maybe dozens in the bigger clans. Right, like you don't have huge clans. They have a standard lifespan of 80 years, so they do procreate at about the same rate humans do. But there are far less of them, and there's a lot of interbreeding. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what else to say in that regard. Like, problematic is if you dive too much into characters like where exactly does he come from, who are his mom and his dad. I don't think parental relationships exist in Dragonborn clans. I think it is just you and then the rest of the clan. Mm-hmm. Those two are the ones that contributed to you. They are the ones who made you, but they are no more different than the shopkeeper and the innkeeper and the mayor and the one who cleans up the broken shells in the clutch.
So it's kind of a collective.
It's
clutch.
A collective.
So they have a breeding season. All the eggs are laid on warm sand in one place.
And then you have keepers.
And people watch it. No one knows who's whose. It's just eggs.
Right. And that's the way I would run it.
That's the way I would run it too.
What about you? What do you think are problematic with Dragonborn?
Mechanically speaking, their stats. They're too as base weak.
I did want to talk about this really quick because you just brought it up. What is the one thing you think is missing from Dragonborn? Mechanically.
A lot.
Tail. What about dark vision?
No.
You don't really? No. Okay, this is a hot take. Why don't you think...
Oh, God, you're lucky, Adams, though.
Once again, I think they're like most lizards and desert-dwelling lizards. So they hang out in warm sun all, like, as genetically way past, for example. They hung out on warm sun, warm rocks, and did their thing during the day. At night, they had to hide from the cold. They've since developed tools, fire, water, whatever, to be able to live in a normal society and not worry about night and day. But from Origins, they had to worry about getting too cold.
I get that. My argument would be that it is very clear that Dragonborn are made for all of the best traits of dragons and humans and put together.
And I think humans tainted it too much, once again.
Yes, I honestly think they just...
Because what are the best traits of humans? The body's not technically better than a dragon's body.
The abilities?
The
abilities are the best thing about them. The skills are pretty damn good about them. The versatility of a human is the best thing about them, right? The ambition that they have is the best thing about a human. Now...
As a species, maybe. They can do a lot as a species.
I'm talking in a view of
human beings are going to go down
as
human beings are going to go down as quite remarkably the most unsuccessful species that was ever on this planet with regards to how long we were around, like in total, when we eventually all died.
And you're talking about this planet. We're talking about 5e.
Yeah,
because humans in the real world are garbage.
I'm not talking about PCs either. We're talking about comparing human to a dragon. That's a general human at best level, what, 1, 2?
But
we're not talking about PCs who are near gods by level 10.
You have dragons, which have dark vision, blind sense, tremor sense, whatever they have. Like they see you and are aware of you at all times, and that's not even included the magical aspect of dragons, which is already missing in a lot of these dragon stat blocks.
And if they were taking from the best from both sides, all those abilities would have come over to the Dragonborn. Because those are better than human senses.
I completely agree, which is why it feels, at the very least, dark vision feels glaringly omitted for them. And that's why at my table, I just give Dragonborn, all Dragonborn just get dark vision.
I feel like it's a trick saying they're a dragon. They're lizard people. They're lizards and humans, and no one knows the secret.
But the thing,
very ignorant, James.
Very ignorant.
The fact that you could choose a draconic ancestry with them leads me to believe that they're less lizard and more dragon, and that there is a difference between dragon and lizard. Right?
I fully agree.
And getting a breath weapon feeds into that as well. Like it's having dark vision missing is just infuriating to me with these guys. Mm-hmm. Terry, anything else problematic about playing a Dragonborn in 5e?
I think they're going to run into similar challenges that elves should run into, in that their characteristics and their beliefs and what they consider to be important in their society you could run into the situation where that's going to bother the rest of the party. It's not going to line up. And these guys are so full of pride and they don't ask for help. There's a time when that's an issue. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a time when, you know, I don't know if you guys know this, but I think it's something like per capita, British people have the most amount of choking deaths in the world because we won't ask for help and we think it's terribly rude. And so we leave. And so what
That happens, is the most British stat I've ever heard.
I've got a better one for you.
There's too much salt on it. It's too spicy.
Oh, yeah. When we choke, we leave the room. We run away and we go and die in the bathroom somewhere. Nobody knows. That's what we do because we can't. It seems rude to bother people, to ask people for help. I know the pride with Dragonborn is different. Did you know in the UK it's seen as particularly rude to die in somebody else's house? It's
illegal to die in the House of Commons in the UK?
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
It is illegal to die.
Illegal to die in the House of Commons.
If you think you are dying,
it's going to be a very short prison term.
Yeah.
If you think you're dying in England, let's be honest, Scotland's probably different. In England, you are expected to leave that person's house. Because they should not have to clean you up after. So if you have a heart attack, you have to go outside.
Okay, that is the most British thing I've ever heard.
That's okay.
Don't want to inconvenience Nan for tea.
Yeah. But these guys is a little bit different. It's more pride-based.
Yeah.
But the fact that they won't ask for help, the difficult situations that you can get in, and don't do that thing of, that's what my character would do, would make us all die. But it's going to make for challenging interactions. Because I think their pride should get in the way of things sometimes.
Well, then let me ask this. Does playing a Dragonborn interest you? For me, yes, they're one of my favorite races in the book. Even with Dark Vision missing, they're one of my favorite races. I feel like they're one of the most flavorful. They're one of the most unique, right? Like I've seen elves countless times. I've seen dwarves countless times. And I like elves and I like dwarves. Well, I like half elves. I like dwarves. I love Dragonborn. Like, and they are I think they were introduced in 4th, right?
Couldn't tell you.
But still, like, they're a relatively new playable race to the Dungeons and Dragons sphere, and I like them. I like their inclusion here.
I don't want to play them for a long campaign because I can't turn it off. I'm still Big Red Dragon Man everywhere I go, and there's going to be times where it's like I don't want to be Big Red Dragon Man today. Like I want to turn that off, you know. And I think after a while I won't want to be kind of stuck in that skin, so to speak.
I find that with a lot of the monstrous races, the bestial races, that I would agree with you that one. Like, I could never play a Leonin because I cannot get over the idea that I am constantly a lion man.
And trying not to be lion.
And trying not to be, well, one, yes, try not to be Lionel, but also...
But, like, not as... Because it's so obvious, right? For
yeah,
people
right?
So anytime
or a Disney character, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's one of the... Like, same with... if you're playing a Loxodon and you're not being Babar, good on you, man.
That means that you can't show... Babar is a great one because there's so many different characters in that show. You can't show the characteristics of any of them because all of a sudden you're Pompadour or something, right? So it's like, but you may just have a similar personality trait that shows up once a campaign.
But playing a distinct, unique Dragonborn, I feel is easy to do. Playing a unique, distinct Tiefling, easy to do. Playing a unique, distinct Firbolg is easy to do. But when you start getting into these really, really animalistic bestial races, me as a player, I have difficulty getting into the frame of mind of long-term campaign. Playing that dude for 2 sessions, yeah, I'm on board. I could do that.
Yeah.
But like, I have troubles with Tabaxi for this reason.
Yeah.
Right? And they are, I would argue, more common at tables than Dragonborn. So
I've always had at least one Tabaxi at a table.
Really?
Yeah. So like, I mean, they're kind of OP. We'll talk about this.
Super OP.
Yeah.
What does OP mean?
Overpowered.
Oh yeah. I knew that.
God damn it, Terry.
Terry, you are not allowed to be pissed off at people for being nerds because you have been on a Dungeons and Dragons podcast nearly weekly for nearly 3 years.
It's like, but I'm on this place. It's like I got on the wrong bus, and then I was here, and everyone was like,
"He's the local
nice.
Chad.
Yeah,
nice most of the time. Just let him stay."
We gave a Chad a book, and he learned how to read it.
Exactly.
Did you hit record?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, as some of you have noticed, obviously, Dan and I launched a bit of an informal side project where we go through one of the Dungeons & Dragons publications at a time and determine the pros and cons and our overall thoughts. And the first one we did was Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden.
We went over almost every page, covering moderate spoilers for the adventure without giving the ending away. We covered things that interest players or may be useful to dungeon masters to get inspiration from.
I always love going through the monsters and the items and the player options.
I really enjoyed seeing all the different forms of the Frost Maiden and investigating everything about her frosty lair to her maiden head.
Dan? What the fuck, man? I need you to take these commercials way more seriously. I show up every time with the utmost professional attitude.
Ah!
What?
You? Professional?
Yes.
Professional what? Dick?
At least I'm not an amateur dick.
I don't... What?
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 What is your problem?
What's an amateur dick?
Well, I don't know. Obviously, by definition, it's a dick that doesn't get paid.
Does your dick normally get paid?
I mean, it should.
Well, I'm not sure that Canada's ready to reintroduce the penny, Adam.
Go fuck yourself, Dan. It should be getting paid in pounds, if you get what I mean.
You could pound it on your own time. We're trying to record a commercial.
Okay, anyway, Dick, we're going to periodically continue working our way through new releases as they come.
Gross.
As well as discussing some of the published material from Wizards of the Coast that has already hit the shelves. There's a lot of info out there for 5th edition, but not every DM or player knows which book to pick up next, or what to expect from an adventure module. After all, there's some great additions to the library, and then there's, well, Rick and Morty versus D&D.
This series is going to be sporadic and unscheduled, so keep your eyes out for these, and let us know if you agree with our assessments.
We hope that you'll be able to use the series as a guideline for which books deserve your attention for your own personal needs as a D&D player. But keep in mind that they're going to be full of moderate spoilers for the adventures, and they aren't meant to tear into specific mechanics or stat blocks.
As we go on, you'll be able to find previous Legend Lore episodes in a playlist on our YouTube channel, or check out the episode guide to see what books we've already covered by looking at the post on r/it'samimic on Reddit.
Now, let's get back to the episode, shall we? Fuck, one of these days we're going to record a normal fucking commercial.
I highly doubt it.
Well, whose fault is that?
Mostly yours.
Disagree.
So, I want to talk about the thing that we overlooked when it came to Dragonborn mechanically, because it's going to take a while to break down. This is their breath weapons. Now, breath weapons in 5e with Dragonborn, I've got some opinions about. I feel that they're kind of weak. You don't get them nearly enough. They don't pack nearly as big of a punch. And it doesn't matter what element you go with. However, there are going to be some that will be more or less effective as you go along. Now, we've got some interesting stats here that when it comes to breath weapons, and I want to go over them here with you guys. Okay. Firstly, for our acid damaging dragon breaths, we have both black and copper Dragonborn. Okay, these are selections you'd make when you're choosing your dragon ancestry. Both of them are 5 foot by 30 foot lines and require dexterity saves. Now, I do want to mention, when you are expelling a dragon's breath, your breath attack, the DC for your saving throw is determined 8 plus your proficiency modifier plus your con modifier. Okay? That is what determines the DC. Whoever's getting stuck in this attack is rolling is dependent on the type of breath, whether they are rolling dex or con. But the DC is set by your con, right, which adds another aspect of weakness to the Dragonborn because they have a mechanical necessity in their race that they're not getting a bonus to in their bonus stats.
Yeah.
Right? Because they get strength and charisma, and now they need better con for a better dragon breath.
So do you buff up that con and then lose out somewhere else? Because how often do you need...
I would have given +2 con, +1 charisma for Dragonborn.
Makes sense. They're a hardy race.
They're hardy. They don't necessarily have to be strong.
You know, they're like, when you're covered in scales like that, you're quite tough. Like, if you ever jab somebody 2 fingers in the ribs, it doesn't bother them. You do it to a dog.
Are they like, Dragonborns more like snake skin as opposed to armored scales?
They have scales, all right.
The thing about Dragonborn is they said that the scales are, and the only mention we have in the player's handbook is that the scales are small and sleek, right? So that sounds reptilian to me, right?
It's the visuals of them, though. They have like big, hard, big, hard bones.
You look at their pictures
look at that skull. You think if you punch that skull down, it's going to bother it? That thing looks like the fucking Predator.
Yeah. For the audio medium, we're pointing at the copper Dragonborn wizard that is inside the Dragonborn page on the player's handbook.
Exactly.
But like that guy is
neck frills,
everything.
That guy looks
right?
like he's going to be bothered by hot sauce, for example. No. High constitution. I think she have a
Well, I've always saw them as British, so he may be bothered by hot sauce.
We are obsessed with dragons over there.
Now, when it comes to the kind of creatures that are going to be resistant to the acid damage, we kind of looked at the Monster Manual, Volos, and Mordenkainen's, and we figured out that there are 30 types of creatures that are resistant to acid damage, and 24 types of creatures, mostly fiends, that are straight up immune to acid damage. Okay? As for cold damage, you have your silver or white dragon. These will produce a 15-foot cone of area of effect for their attack, and it will be a constitution save to get through. So fuck you, rogues. You don't get evasion here.
Okay.
However, with cold damage...
Matrix bend fireball anymore.
Well, you can't Matrix bend being too cold anymore. Now, one of the downsides is there are 103 different creatures who are resistant to cold damage in D&D 5e, and they're mostly fiends. However, on who are immune to it, there are 28, and they are mostly undead and monstrosities. However, there are 4 that are vulnerable to cold damage, and those are mostly elementals. Okay?
I have to not listen too much during this bit because I don't like knowing this information when I choose characters, because I choose characters based a lot on the flavor and background.
This is fairly min-maxy. If you are playing for the numbers... But it's going to affect
my decision now.
This is information we're giving to everybody. Yeah, plug your ears if you don't like it. But like, this is information that we think is relevant because what type of Dragonborn you build is going to affect your campaign drastically.
Yeah.
Depending on what Draconic ancestry. If you are playing Rime of the Frost Maiden, friends, I mean, the resistance to cold is nice, so roll a white or a silver Dragonborn, but your breath weapon's not going to do dilly jack shit. right? You kind of got to deal with both there. Okay. Let's move from cold to hot. We'll do fire next. There are 3 types of dragons that breathe fire. They are the brass, the gold, and the almighty red. Now, for the gold and the red, that is a 15-foot con save cone for their breath attack. However, for the brass dragon, that is a 5-foot by 30-foot line. That is a dexterity save. Now, I do want to mention anything within that line is going to get hit. That is an area of effect. It is not just, the person in the front's going to get hit and everything behind it's protected. No, you're all getting hit by this fire. Now,
makes no sense.
Now, when it comes to resistance, fire is one of the most resisted elements in the game, just not as bad as cold. 83, mostly fiends, creatures are resistant to fire damage, whereas 64 are immune. So just straight up immune. Those are also mostly fiends. However, there are 12, and they're mostly plants, because of course they are, that are vulnerable to fire. Okay, so if you're playing a romp through the jungles of Chult, consider playing a brass, a gold, or a red Dragonborn. Now, as for lightning damage, there are blue and bronze Dragonborn. Now, both of these are 5-foot by 30-foot lines that require dexterity saves, so your rogues are probably going to be fine. As for creatures that are resistant, there are 81 mostly fiends that are resistant to lightning damage, 26 that are immune, and no vulnerable creatures to lightning damage. Finally, the one last unique kind of Dragonborn are the greens. Green Dragonborns have a poison breath. Not an acid, but a poison breath. That is a 15-foot cone that is also a con save. There are 6 creatures that are resistant to this, and they're fiends and Durgar. There are 191 creatures that are immune to it. Thank you, poison damage. You're useless.
Yeah. So what are we doing? Even I wouldn't play that character.
However, there are 0 that are vulnerable to it. So, guys, I gotta ask. Let's roll dice on this one real quick. Let's ask a couple questions about this.
11.
1.
7. Okay. Now, Terry.
Hello.
Knowing what kind of cones they are, what kind of damage they do, I should mention real quick, because we didn't cover it earlier, at first level, when you roll the Dragonborn, you get 2d6 damage.
Right.
That increases by 1d6 at 6th level, 11th level, and 16th level.
Right.
Up to a max of 5d6. And you can only do it once per short rest. Okay? That in mind, do you think that the scaling of a breath weapon is powerful enough, considering how much the rest of the bonuses don't stack up?
No. It's nowhere near powerful enough.
No.
Especially with the resistance
not at
and the
all.
immunity.
This is a dragon's burp.
Yes.
Right?
And how long are you attracted to this for? Because remember, you can get more powerful similar weapons, as in like cold, lightning, whatever, from different means in D&D. So how long am I holding on to this for? After level 3, I'm like, no, I'm good. I have other things now.
You are a level 3 Dragonborn, and you cast Burning Hands at 2nd level. You are more powerful with that spell than you are with your breath weapon.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
It's dumb.
It's ridiculous, and the way that
it costs an action, right?
It costs an action to do as well.
And even so, it's so low power. Well, you could say your argument could be, well, if you use the cone or the line, you can hit multiple enemies. Yeah, but that's not tactical, because when we think action economy, we're trying to remove people from the battlefield. So me hitting 5 people a little bit isn't helping anybody.
Well, the thing is, if you're in a situation where you could hit 5 people in a line, or 6 people in a line with your breath weapon, cool. Your DM is not playing smart.
No.
Right?
It's hallways, right? That's where it's happening.
It's
right?
hallways. Yeah. Exactly. You're completely correct. However, at the same time, 9 times out of 10, you're not fighting in hallways. 9 times, you might be doing a lot of dungeon delves, and that's when it's useful. But if you're out in the open, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're getting surrounded, you're screwed. You hit one of them.
And if you're playing any type of intelligent enemy, they would know to spread. That's like basic military training. Don't bunch up, because when the grenade goes off, you're fucked. Like it's spread out a little bit.
How many times I've thrown Fireball into a group, though? They all know it exists. They all know it's coming.
But Fireball is always bigger than you think.
But as the DM,
100%.
if you're playing, okay, so if it's like a load of hobgoblins in a hallway, that's a perfect example. They're gonna know not to bunch up. You know, humans naturally we bunch up when we're afraid anyway. But for different types of creatures that we have, it's just going to be strategic for the DM and perfectly reasonable for them to spread people out. So it's not enough damage to only a few, 2 or 3 creatures. Could look at it now.
James, what do you think?
I fully agree. It's not strong enough, but once again, that's why, as we have this list, I would even encourage min-maxing on Dragonborn.
Yeah.
To get those few extra hit points out that you're gonna get. Like, if you're in Strahd or Avernus, pay attention to what flavor of Dragonborn you have.
Yeah.
Because you want your damage to do something.
Yeah. Would you... we're all DMs here. We all have a loose concept, at the very least, of homebrew. How would you make this more fair for your Dragonborn players?
Reaction.
You'd make it a reaction.
I'd give it to them as a reaction. And on a short rest.
It's still short rest.
So short rest to re-get it back? I thought it was long rest.
No, short rest again.
Okay, then yeah, just a reaction.
Yeah.
I would give it a bonus action to do it. Reaction seems a bit too quick to drop
I
it.
feel like
I
that's
like
what
it
it
because
is.
I would use it like Hellish Rebuke.
Yeah.
I'd use it in that style.
When someone, especially as a caster, which most of the Dragonborns I've seen played are casters.
Yeah.
So getting someone coming up, hitting you to be able to hit him with a breath weapon as they run away.
And it's so weird because they get that +2 to strength.
Yeah.
Like, you're playing them casters, sure, okay.
And it's a weapon that makes perfect sense. I shouldn't say weapon because there's weapons. I mean, it's a tool that you can use that makes perfect sense for somebody who's like, who didn't disengage, who's running past you. So that makes perfect sense to hit him with your breath weapon.
Personally, I would make it a bonus action, not a reaction, but I would give it more uses in a day. Give it, and we've seen this in some later products that are now coming out. We've seen this in Tasha's with a couple subclasses. Give it proficiency modifier times a day.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Right? That way, you're doing this type of damage, and by max level, you're giving it 6 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. You're max level. Go nuts.
Yeah.
Right? Your baseline dragon gets to re-roll this on a 5 or 6.
But
You as a level 20 Dragonborn Paladin still has to take a short hour-long nap before you could breathe on something again. It's bonkers to me. It needs more uses.
I agree with you on the more uses, absolutely. But what's the point of more uses if it's not attractive to use anyway?
That's why you put it as a bonus action.
The problem is not. Yeah, that's the part that I agree more with for sure. Because and that needs to be part of the agreement with more uses, right?
Yeah.
Because right now, you can say we can use it 5 times a day. I'm not using it once a day, so.
I mean, it does kind of compare to some other races getting their magical traits. Like you see some Tiefling getting Hellish Rebuke, right?
Right.
They get that once a day or whatever it is. Okay, fine. But Tiefling also get, all of these resistances. They get all these spells. They get all of these other aspects to them that buff them up better. They get Dark Vision. Motherfucking Dark Vision. Like
I think too many classes have races have dark
too many
vision.
races. Yes, I agree with you. But there are races in this game that have Dark Vision that I don't feel should. Half-elves should not have dark vision.
What about...
If you're going to argue half Dragonborn, who are amalgamation of dragon and human, should, I would argue that then a half-elf should as well.
Okay, so you are equating elves and dragons.
I'm creating an ancient species with a mundane species.
Which is enough of a difference in my mind where a half-elf who is far closer to a human would not get dark vision.
Are they though? But just because they're bipedal and look the same doesn't mean they're
all
genetically the same.
They get the same level of versatility in terms of skill. Like they get that skill versatility. They get that ASI level of versatility. Like,
does that just come from being bipedal and an advanced race?
No, it comes from being part human, part elf.
What about, to throw a wrench in the works here, what about taking inspiration from something like the Wild Magic table, where there's a chance where it could become more powerful or something a little strange could happen, or taking inspiration from, I wasn't going to say the Wild Magic table, I was going to say something else that slips my mind now.
Sorcery points.
The new things that you can do with Eldritch Blast, where you can push
invocations.
Invocations, yeah. You can push people, pull people, do some things like that.
No, I like that. In fact, I would like to see the Metallic Dragonborn being able to do the metallic options for other types of breaths, like putting people to sleep or stunning them or paralyzing them or whatever that is, right? So
seems so obvious.
It seems obvious,
Wizard.
and it seems missed on a race that, in terms of lore, they did their work on. Yeah. These guys are great, but mechanically, they're just kind of bad.
The breath weapon should be like, as you wizards. Okay, all the nerds are here. Great, brilliant, everyone. We have the agenda. Okay, number 1 item on the agenda for Dragonborn should be breath weapon. That should be number 1. Week 1, day 1. We're creating Dragonborn. Let's talk about the breath.
Now, I have a funny feeling it was number 1, and they made it Fireball or Hellish, or some extremely powerful spell strong. Finished the rest of everything else and looked at it again and be like, oh, they're way too strong. dummied it down, and that's why the whole class is dummied down.
Perkins grabs out his Nerf bat and just starts beating the shit out of
it back
Dragonborn.
down.
Yeah.
Because that's why the rest of Dragonborn probably is not that strong, because they had a powerful ability before.
Well, let's talk about power for a second. Lines versus cones. Terry, lines versus cones. Which is the better one?
Is this like a cocaine reference?
No, it's not a cocaine. Do you think the lines are a better attack or the cones are a better attack?
Lines.
Not cocaine, Terry.
I prefer lines of breath.
We hear it. It's a mimic. Do not condone the use of any sort of recreational. No, we do it. It's fine.
They're going to think we do. Adam's going to be so mad.
Yeah.
We don't. It's COVID.
We don't encourage anything illegal.
Illegal. Yes, there we go.
Lines.
Remember, crime's only if you get caught.
Hey.
Lines. Lines. Because of my style of
Sound
play,
like an actor.
I feel...
Lines?
What's the line? What is the line? Because my style of play, the distance advantage that comes with the line, I think will be more useful to me.
Okay. James?
Mechanically, cones, because it's easier to hit a larger group of people because people rarely line up. But lore-wise and how I think Dragonborn should be, just about everything should be lines, except for acid and poison.
Yeah.
Those are liquids.
I agree with you with that one. However, mechanically powerful, the cones are going to win out.
Mm-hmm.
They do the same amount of people, and it's that con save. So
it's easier to hit people in a cone too.
Anything that takes power away from a rogue, I'm on board with.
Yeah.
So, fuck you, rogues.
Yeah.
Cones.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's con save.
Yeah.
You're not evading that.
No.
Okay? Let's talk about selecting your types of dragons and whether or not the type of dragon you choose impacts your character flavor. You mentioned this earlier, that the different types of dragon you have should probably have some sort of effect on how you're playing your character. Now, there are 10 options when it comes to Dragonborn selections. You could be either a red, blue, green, black, white if you're chromatic, or you could be gold, bronze, brass, silver, or copper if you're metallic. Now, on the chromatic side, red dragons are often prideful and aggressive, but also relatively socially inept and vain, as well as severe loners. They don't want anybody, anything, anywhere around them. Blue dragons, on the other hand, are vain and extremely territorial, but don't like to get their hands dirty, and will hire or live peacefully near other humanoid settlements, so long as they pay proper homage. Okay? Green dragons are conniving and master manipulators, reveling in the corruption of others, whereas black dragons are cruel, sadistic, and thoroughly evil. Right? White dragons are the most bestial of any dragon. They are wild, feral hunters, and also the most territorial of all dragons. They have their hunting grounds, and if you're there, you're food. Okay? As for metallics, your gold dragons are graceful and wise, but also reserved and relentless in their sense of justice. And I want to stress, their sense of justice doesn't align with your average Joe Blow grew up on a farm, and your parents died and now you're an orphan and you're seeking to be a human level of adventurer. Your sense of justice and goodness does not compare to what a gold dragonborn's view is. Okay? Listen to our gold dragon episode, you'll get it. Bronze dragons are fierce protectors of humanoids, loving their culture, and are basically the anthropologists of dragonkind. Brass dragons are the bards of dragonkind. They're the ones who want to talk. They are the most talkative of all dragons, but also the physically weakest. Brass dragons sought knowledge and family more than anything else. They are your Fast and Furious family of dragons. Families first.
Nothing stronger than family.
Nothing stronger than
Can't
family.
even beat a Trask.
Silver Dragonborns are the best of dragons. Yeah, the best of all dragons. That's the note I got here. It says the best of all dragons.
Right.
But specifically, they're the best of metallic dragons. They're good and wise and kind. Where golds are more about law than good, silvers are more good than law, seeking to eradicate those that would harm the innocent.
God damn, I
fucking love silver dragons.
The other day, I was walking my dog. I gotta tell.
I got one more dragon to go.
I tell a side story.
Just one more.
Okay. I'm doing this.
Okay.
I was walking my dog, right? And I go to this school in Maple Ridge, big field. There's a basketball court there.
It's not a euphemism. Walking your dog.
youths. There was some youths there, and one of them, he was 17. He climbed the basketball hoop up the back and kind of hung off, did a couple of pull-ups or whatever, and dropped down. So he's got a 17-year-old body, can do what he wants. That's totally fine. And
I hurt just hearing that story.
There was a woman walking her, what I would call a shit dog, which is a dog that can't survive on its own. And I could see her. She was looking. She was doing that like hobbling thing, like she's literally never taken care of herself a day in her life. And I was like, and I knew she was gonna say something to these kids. I knew she. And she goes over. She's like, "Excuse me, you shouldn't be climbing that." And I thought of silver dragons as soon as she did it because I'm nerdy as well. I'm nerdy. I'm walking around thinking about the podcast, and you're always like prepping.
No. I'm not. That's not the part that amazed me. It's the fact that you thought that someone doing that is a good Dragonborn? Is a silver dragon?
100%. A Karen would be a silver dragon.
I know.
She's following her sense of justice.
A Karen is a gold dragon.
Gold, sorry, yeah.
She's just, we call it, in the UK we say stick in your aura in. And I just thought, he's fucking 17. He climbed a basketball hoop that's literally made out of solid metal. It can't break. It's totally fine. And you had to walk over there looking like you've never taken care of yourself a fucking day in your life, and then start whining at these guys. And I was just like, just fuck off. And it made me think of Silver Dragonborn because when I was walking with my headphones, I was prepping some D&D stuff in my head. Anyway, edit that out.
No, keep it in.
Hate them.
Well, my least favorite kind are the copper dragons, which are your prankster dragons. They're physically unimpressive comparatively to the other dragons, but copper dragons would rather play tricks to annoy and frustrate foes to their breaking points before ever engaging in combat. Okay? So, guys, using the same initiative order we had earlier, how much would you tie a dragon's personality to a Dragonborn NPC? James.
Tie a silver dragon to a train.
I would have it more of a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of idea. So let's use the brass dragon as an example, which are more, they seek after knowledge and they want to learn things and know more. Yeah. So that stereotype on brass dragons would be imposed on brass dragonborn, and they themselves, whether they actually want to go seek out knowledge, want to get new information, are curators of libraries more often.
Okay.
They gather more information than other dragonborn. Whether they want to or not, they are fulfilling the prophecy that they themselves think is imposed on them.
Well, we had that idea of clans, right?
Yeah.
Like a brass dragonborn clan would be
seek knowledge.
Scholars.
Whether they truly want to, any of them truly want to seek knowledge, that's neither here nor there. That's just what brass dragonborn do.
Cool. Terry?
Yeah, similar to that. I think I would take, I think because there's so few of them and they're around a lot of other races a lot. It's not like dragons where they are their own world, essentially. Yeah. That they would, it would just be flavor into how they interact with others. So maybe they wouldn't be necessarily arrogant. They would be more competitive, you know.
I don't know. I think a red dragonborn would cross that line. A red dragonborn would come off as incredibly conceited.
In a group setting, I think.
Yeah.
I think when they are in their clan or there's a bunch of them, they'll come off as conceited, as would brass dragons come across as knowledgeable. But when they're on a one-on-one personal situation, they revert to who they truly are, which doesn't have to follow the guise of the group.
I think you might be able to...
Because then it just falls into human psychology, because people will do things that they would never normally do when they're in a group of people. So all the Dragonborn think every other Dragonborn that's brass wants knowledge. So just because I don't, I'm weird. So I'm going to keep quiet about that and seek knowledge with them. And everyone could feel that way, but no one's sharing it.
Really? Spot the counselor over here.
Well, no, you actually made me think of a question. Would a Dragonborn NPC, let's just say NPC right now, not necessarily PC, apply this to your PCs if you want, but a Dragonborn NPC, would they act differently if they saw specifically another Dragonborn in a crowd? Would they act differently in that situation as opposed to
on Greece, where Danny Zuko doesn't act the same when he's with his friends?
Exactly.
Yes, a night and day difference that you would see instantly. You'd be walking around, especially with
NPC,
the NPC will be walking normally, and then all of a sudden back arches. They put their chest out. They act more proud, more.
They start huffing
arrogant,
more for whatever,
and especially. Especially if they see the other Dragonborn race as below them, they'll make sure to pass by them looking lofty,
I
looking
love
stronger.
this. And you've got to put that into character as well. And just don't tell anybody's going to happen. Just start doing it when another Dragonborn NPC comes in.
Well,
so the rest of the party's like, when they leave, the rest of the party's like,
what was that?
What was what? You've literally never said
and
that.
And if I was
ever.
a DM running that NPC, I would give them advantage on charisma rolls, on persuasion,
or disadvantage, depending on.
Depending on who they're going against and what. But especially when they get arrogant, especially for a gold dragon or one of the more arrogant dragons, they get advantage because they think they're that good. They get to be that good.
So for PCs, would you do the same thing then? Like we said for NPCs, for PCs, would you tie these draconic traits, these like a red's arrogance, a gold's sense of justice, a copper's prankster attitude? Would you put that into or try to enforce that to your player characters?
I would not enforce it to my player characters. I would tell them that's how the world worked in private, so they can choose to follow that. And it can be the reason why they left their clan. They're the ones that said, you know what? No, fuck it. I don't like seeking knowledge. I'm going out to go beat shit up. That's what I want to do. So they're no longer part of their clan, which is the reason they're adventuring. So you can give them the hook to adventure. And depending on with roleplay and the advantage, disadvantage, depending on the player, I would give it to them. I have a few players who would handle that well, and I have ones that will just abuse it.
No,
they know they have the advantage.
I love Dragonborn so much, but I also love feudal Japanese culture so much. So like I'm sitting here like
you're essentially making a Ronin.
You're making a Ronin, right? You're separating yourself, and then once you, as a Ronin, are approached by a member of the nobility or of the imperial order or of any sort of samurai order, you, even as a Ronin, you still have rules you have to follow, right? And playing that brass Dragonborn who's just like, fuck it, I just want to beat stuff up. I don't want to read books. I don't want to be like, I don't care about my family. And then you're approached by like the head of your clan or
it's
another,
difficult,
right? Like now you've got to stand up straight, or you still have to. Like I would make it a thing in Dragonborn culture where you address a Dragonborn by their full name in proper order.
I would follow more like as Japan does. The older they are than you, or the more important they are above you, the more respect you put on it. But if they're below you,
I'm 100%.
You don't have to worry about it. You can be as disrespectful as you want. It's common practice to use last and first name, but most people younger just get their last name. Because your first name doesn't matter to me, but your family clan name matters to me. And that's all you get to be identified as.
Yeah, I like that. I really like that.
I think I'd get too triggered. Like real life Terry would get sucked into character there.
That's the
point. You want to get sucked into the character. This is Dungeons and Dragons.
No, I would. No, I'm saying. Yeah. But it would stress me. Is probably a nice way of saying
I'm playing a tiefling, and my DM asked me, he's like, normally in my world, tieflings are, as he put it, and I agreed with him because he was trying to find nice words to say it, but treated as black people are in America. So sometimes not always good. Are you okay with that in my world? If you don't want it, you don't have it, and we can drop it, but that's how I normally play. I'm like, 100% fine with that. He's like, you sure you're not going to get mad? I'm like, no, because that was I even thought for this character. Yeah. It's a normal human, very human world, a few beast race, a few tieflings, Tabaxi, those are the ones.
Yeah, there we go.
And I'm like, well, no, I would rather you look like a devil. Of course you're going to be put out.
Yeah.
And that's been the playoff I've used throughout that campaign, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and for me, when I'm playing a character that has to deal with some of the struggles I deal with in my day-to-day life, I find it kind of cathartic.
Yeah.
Right? Like I played a character who struggled with, the fact that he was a shitty dad, and sometimes I feel like I'm a shitty dad. So, like...
Dan, the fact that you worry about being a shitty dad means you're one of the good ones.
I know.
If you start talking down about yourself, we'll pause this.
See, I told you.
Yeah.
I told you.
I won't have it.
We should just give Terry an hour. We'll give him comments of us being self-deprecating and let Terry just yell into the mic for an hour.
Britney Spears / Tony Robbins style microphone.
Yeah.
Just give me a
2019 Uncle Terry was about like weird sexual positions and like the most grotesque thing you could do. 2021 Terry is about self-improvement and self-esteem boosts.
No, I was always about my own self-improvement. I was always,
now you're just in everybody else's.
Killing it. Now I'm just like I'm not like self-improving, like going around going, no, just believe, achieve, fucking whatever, all that bullshit. All those, like, I call them granola quotes that go on Instagram. It's like, and you know the person that posted that quote does not live by that advice. Anyway, I'm not like that. I'm just like, don't talk bad about yourself.
Well, for how you are, Terry, what Dragonborn heritage, which Dragonborn ancestry appeals to you the most to play as a player? If you were to choose one of the 10, which would you choose?
Green. Because I wouldn't go full, like, green dragon, like scheming and conniving. I would play it more as strategic and very aware of situations.
Especially the fact that your breath weapon is basically useless.
So slight.
Well, yeah, he was.
Yeah.
But I'm not planning on using a breath weapon much anyway. But I'm saying for their personality, that's what I'd go with. Because I think it would be... I've always wanted to be very, very strategic. But I get tunnel vision on some things. And so I can't think necessarily 9 moves ahead. And people will be laughing on you. Terry's an idiot. Guarantee I'm fucking killing it. So don't worry. But I just say that's because when we play D&D, we play the superhero that we want to be. And that's what I want to be, is the master strategist.
Cool. James?
I'd probably do silver because it's the opposite of my play style.
Okay.
Does
it appeal to you mechanically as well with the cold damage, or
not really? Dragonborns generally don't appeal to me.
Yep.
I'm interested in the Gemstone Dragon. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall Dragonborns, I would do silver just because it would give me a different way of play.
Okay. For me, honestly, I want to play Chromatic Dragonborn. I played the metallic with Rezu. I want to play a Chromatic, struggling to make sense of his parentage, right? Like I think blue is the one that appeals to me the most right now. Maybe a red Dragonborn. I mean, it's fairly cookie cutter, but
that's why I like the Gemstone Dragon.
What is red? Why red?
Why does red? I, as Dan, and Terry, you know this, don't handle vanity well.
What do you mean you don't? Like your own vanity or someone else's?
My own. Well, yes, both. I don't. I'm not a. It's a very weird statement to say, but I'm not a vain person, right? Like I don't know how to project that. So like having
you don't know how to project that you're not vain?
No, how to project that I am vain. So like I would challenge myself to play a red Dragonborn because this would be the conceited, arrogant character who is trying to make sense. And of course I'd play him good because I don't like playing evil characters typically. But
when does self-worth become vanity to you? When does it cross?
That line, I have no idea. Fairly early. That line is fairly early.
And what things do you think you can be vain in? Like if you're a musician, you're really good at playing bass, right? With your instrument. But when does that become vanity? Where somebody's like, okay, shut the fuck up, Dan. That's what I'm saying. Like, can you be vain in that talent?
I am self-defeating in almost everything I do. So I don't like. You said we said earlier that I kind of suffer from imposter syndrome sometimes. That's one of the reasons, right? Like it's I always feel like I could do better. So because I know I could do better, why would I tout what I am currently doing? Because it could get better.
I move the goalpost as well. So yeah, I will be like, I need to get, as in school, for example, I need to read 3 chapters to be satisfied with the homework I've done.
Right.
I will get to the end of the 3rd chapter and still know I have chapter 5, 6, and 7 to go, plus another assignment. So my goalpost is now 5, 6, and 7, and another assignment. I never finished the first goal because I changed it at the very end.
Yeah.
So you're always reaching for a new goal, and you never feel like you've accomplished anything.
Get fulfillment. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about moving the goalpost for better and improvement and better improved versions of things, and let's talk about the 2 new forms of Dragonborn we have from Wildmount. Both of you have options with the Draconblood and the Ravenite. So I want the 2 of you to roll off, and let's break down these.
Your segues are fantastic.
Trying.
I want you to try more publicly, and then I'll show everybody that you're good at that. I got 9.
I got 6.
All right, Terry.
Yeah, I got Draconblood. Draconblood, I suppose.
Draconblood, yeah.
Is how you would say it. I was worried that everybody would be like, it's Draconblood, but whatever. Yeah, so So a little bit of the lore of Draconblood then, because I don't know too much about all of that.
It's Critical
backstory
Role.
That's
and
the
lore.
Exandria.
I've watched
campaign
Critical
setting,
Role in a
correct?
couple of years. Me and the personalities on Critical Role were not gelling with each other.
It's a good campaign setting, though.
It is?
It's a nice big world.
If you took Taldore and you took Wildmounts, those 2 books that are out,
Right.
Wildmount is far more fleshed out than Taldore is.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, but the Draconblood were slave masters then.
Yes.
So known for their intellect and their gem-like scales, I guess, in their flesh. I'll remember how to speak in a second. But they were slave masters over the Ravenites, which is going to be yours, and they lived in like an elevated cityscape. Is what I
Draconia,
read.
I believe, is what it's called.
Right, and they were like the overlords of the Ravenites that were below them, and they were their slave masters. And then after the Chroma Conclave came along and decimated their home space, which I do remember from Critical Role, that's when they were removed from that position, and then they essentially had to flee and seek asylum elsewhere, and kind of try and rebuild their life.
Their entire culture got scattered after the Chroma Conclave destroyed Draconia. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, do the Draconblood have tails?
So Draconbloods do, Ravenites don't for tails, right?
Yeah, that's what it seems to be.
And so this is interesting because it's so strong in their pride and their background, their lore. It's like, how do you play this? Do you play this as like a learned trait? Do they learn this sort of elitism that they have? Or is it just inherent in them that they believe themselves that they naturally should be the overlords of these people? As I go home, and the relationship between my dog and I is that I am in charge. We because I should be, you know.
Yeah, but your people thought that before too.
Who's my people, James?
Britain.
What do we do? You tell me what they did hundreds of years ago.
What do you mean, you people?
Because we could do this all day. Okay, we're still not cool with the Germans either. And to be honest, I've got some beef with the fucking Danes, the amount of times they raided my shores in the northeast of England, so we'll do this all day.
So the Draconblood.
Okay.
We're going over time. We need to start moving along.
Okay.
So the Draconblood, Terry.
Yeah. That's it. That's their background. That's who they are.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
What about their stats? What do they offer to us mechanically?
Okay, there's a couple of variants. So you can allow a player to choose one of these 2 variants here. So you can have the Draconblood variant, which means that you will get an ability score increase in that your intelligence score will increase by 2 and your charisma score will increase by 1.
That's to replace your other
So you
normal Dragonborn ones.
Yeah, these are completely new variants. They're going to replace pretty much everything you got. So like instead of +2 strength, you're getting to +2 int.
Right.
Yeah.
But these, by their background, they're known for their intellect.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense because with them being kind of overlords, you get a little bit of a Mind Flayer vibe. Like if you understand Mind Flayers, you can adapt to this type of dragon.
Draconia was also a very magical society, or at least was. They're very magically advanced, right? Their city was floating based off of the technologies that the Draconians put into place.
They were equals as well at the start.
Yeah, so like having the idea that these guys are +2 int over the +2 strength really tracks when they are the ones who are magically inventive and forward thinking in that regard.
And by the book, they get dark vision.
Yep.
Up to 60 feet. So a Dragonborn that has dark vision.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt Mercer.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say it's this Wizards, but it's not. No. Matt Mercer's catching everybody
Matt Mercer fixed
up. He also spotted this problem. But they get something called Forceful Presence as well, because they have such an ability with regards to diplomacy and intimidation, essentially manipulating people to do what they want to do. They roll these checks with advantage, and they can do this once every short or long rest, I believe.
Good Lord. Now, you get these 3 basically abilities. You get the int for intelligence, you get the dark vision, and you get this advantage on social checks. Do you get your breath weapon still? Because what are the trade-offs? How are these variants?
The ability score modifiers are the variants.
So the ability score modifiers are the variants.
Change out what you normally would have. You would lose your resistance, but you would get the advantage on diplomacy checks.
Would you still get your breath weapon?
You should. Well, it doesn't say that you don't, does it?
No.
You should get your breath weapon
Yeah.
still, because you're still choosing a Draconic.
So you're still
ancestry.
choosing a Draconic ancestry. You're just not getting the damage resistance
Yes.
from it. Cool. Okay. What else do we got? Ravenite.
So with the Ravenites, as Terry said, they were ruled over by the Draconblood. So similar to the other variant race Terry talked about, their ability scores get replaced. You get a +2 to strength and a +1 to con, which would help you with your breath weapon. You also get dark vision, and you get vengeful assault. So when someone attacks you and you can reach them with a weapon attack, you can use a reaction to shank them good. So you essentially get an attack of opportunity without invoking the move away action.
Cool.
I like that.
And you can use it once per long to short rest.
All right, cool. These are both far more powerful, I feel.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
they feel more dragony to me.
Yeah.
I'm completely okay with losing the damage resistance.
Yes.
Right? And to get these cool things and then dark vision, I'm on board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What were the Ravenite's ASIs again? +2.
+2 to strength and +1 to constitution.
+1 to con instead of charisma.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm playing that guy as a barbarian every day.
That one's a great barbarian.
Yeah. What is one piece of inspiration or a plot hook that you guys could have for these guys in your standard D&D game? Let's take them out of Wildmount and just put them in. Why would there be these two new distinct races of Dragonborn in your homebrew world? Do you guys have any insight into that?
One way I would do it would be that they've always been in the world, but they have just come out of hiding.
Okay.
That they both went to war to separate. They had the great upheaval. One side rebelled and broke away, and they separated, but they didn't want the other to know where they are. Both have feared reprisal. So they both hid away for hundreds of years, and then they can have a sizable population. So where most clans are in the 10s to 50s if you're lucky, they could have 100, 200, 1,000. So they easily outnumber all other Dragonborns, and you could have them as the point of contention in the story.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't have an interesting way to introduce them. I just like the idea of looking past, and I'm thinking Draconblood here, when their ancestors were ruling over people. And now that's not the case anymore, but they're still living their life as individuals, being remembered for that. I took inspiration from Britain. Yes, absolutely. Because
I was going to say.
Clearly.
That's literally me. I go through my life with various people angry at me for certain things, demanding I apologize for things or whatever. And we make jokes
We
about
never asked you to apologize. We just make fun of you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's fine. I'm definitely not judging about. But that to make that where it would bother somebody, because it doesn't really bother. But to amplify that to a point where a person has to live their life in that way, in that they're constantly made to feel guilty about something that was completely out of their control.
So they're actually being persecuted for it.
Yeah, and I think, and now that's not a crazy way to introduce them. That would be something that all of them would have to deal with. But because they're so few and far between, they would feel very individualistic for them.
Cool.
Sure. Completely off topic about Dragonborns. Listen to this. A cleric, a wizard, and a barbarian are all sent to the 9th and deepest level of hell. Okay, they get down there, and there's 3 doors. And the devil says to them, a little imp, he says, I'm going to open these doors one at a time. Whichever one you choose is the one you have to stay in. But you have to decide, because when we go to the next one, you can't go back to the last one. So he opens the door, and they all look in, and there's a load of people stood on their heads on a hardwood floor, and it looks incredibly uncomfortable. And the imp says, you'll have to spend eternity like this. But you can choose to go to the next doors if you want. And the cleric says, I know, devils, all of these doors are going to be awful. Believe me, this is going to be the best one. So he says, I'll stay here. The wizard says, I don't think it's going to be like that. I've got a little inkling that we're getting tricked here. So I'm going to go to the next door. So the cleric stays there forever. They go to the next door, he opens it up. It's the same situation, but the room is full of little tacks all over the floor. It looks incredibly uncomfortable to stand on your head for forever. The wizard says, it's clearly getting worse. I'm going to stay here. The barbarian says, you're insane. I've been watching you guys for a long time, and I know this imp can't do this again. So they go to the last and final door after the wizard stays there forever. And there's loads of people in the room, all drinking coffee, standing knee-deep in shit. And the barbarian says, well, this is absolutely fantastic. I love coffee. I don't mind standing knee-deep in shit for the rest of eternity while I'm drinking coffee. So I'll stay here. Thank you very much. The imp says, that's great. And you go, closes the door. You'll spend there forever. The barbarian gets kicked through the door, just about gets himself nice and settled, and another devil yells out to everybody, coffee break's over, get back on your head.
So if you have any problems with what Terry just said, or you would like to let him know, contact us on Instagram, Facebook, or on Reddit at It's a Mimic. You can also email us at info@itsamimic.com for mailbag questions such as why
Brilliant joke. I thought it was
Why?
great.
All right. So while you guys go to our social media and furiously ask why Terry is the way he is, I want the three of us to grab our dice here, and I want to know what is one interesting, unique Dragonborn character build using either the Draconblood, Ravenite, or stock PHP Dragonborn. What's a good character build for these guys? Let's go. I got a 14.
17.
6.
All right, 17, Terry. One interesting character build. Class, subrace, background, all of it.
I want to do the Draconblood. I would do it as Draconblood background. I didn't really think of like a specific class to go with this. It was more the background of the character that I wanted to play. And I want to do this person after the war that they went through between the Ravenites and the Draconbloods when the revolution, the uprising, and they were sent away. And I want to do this character from their point of view, where they're jaded and they're bitter because they understood the horrors of war from their side.
Okay.
Yeah, history is written by the victors and all that, but both sides will do awful things.
Yeah.
So they may have had horrific experiences during this war based on what the other side did to them, their families, their friends. Obviously, they would have been very frustrated, and they would have gone through horrific things, but now need to spend their life considered being the bad guy in all of this. And so I would love to play a character that way that still feels jaded and still hates these people because of what they witnessed them do, even though they're considered the good guys and these guys considered the bad guys.
Do you have a class? What type of Dragonborn is he, like, in terms of color?
I would do this as a metallic. I don't have a metallic in mind.
Would this be a silver Dragonborn?
Do you know what? I would do it as a silver Dragonborn because there's going to be a lot of confliction there.
Yeah,
There's
cool.
going to be a lot of
What
confliction.
about class?
I would do it as like somebody who was probably right in the thick of it and experiences a lot, so like a battle master or something.
That's interesting, playing the +2 int +1 charisma battle master.
Whatever. You got to think
No,
about
I mean,
flavor.
no, I'm saying it works. It really
I
tracks.
I don't think too much about mechanics.
Yeah, that's fair. I would definitely play this guy as like a you get the veteran background as well.
Yeah.
Which will really help feed that as
You can play with PTSD and all kinds of
Oh,
stuff.
like playing with that level of trauma would be great.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. Welcome to the dark side. Here's your lightsaber.
So for me, I love focusing on this idea of the feudal clan finally having to reach out to find help from like a surrounding neighborhood or something. So I would play like the one character who never has experienced anyone outside of his clan finally making it out to the land of the humans, to the non-scaled folk, and for the first time seeing the culture of them and loving it. This guy is a brass dragonborn who has been so involved with his own little like almost monastic style. So I would play this guy. I like the idea of playing him as a monk just because you get the +2 strength and that makes it a little bit better. And it really feeds into that narrative. I'd probably make him a Kensai and go full on Ronin.
I always forget about monks. I gotta do a monk next. I think it'd be
my next character is a bard, and I'm kind of regretting it.
Yeah, that's another one I haven't played.
But so I love this idea of this completely bright-eyed young dragonborn seeing the world for the first time and like trying to have things explained to him. Like, wait, you guys eat the plants that grow on the ground? Why do you not
think
just
that's awful.
like explain to me this cultural regularity? Like, what is this? Why are you guys getting animals to pull things for you? Why do you not just pull them yourselves? Right? Like things like that would be foreign to this character, and then get him to meet the other people that have either been banished by his tribe in the past or whatnot, who seeing him out in the world come to try to recruit him because of some evil in his like. There's a reason why his brass dragonborn clan stayed remote. Right? I love that idea for a brass dragonborn level character, and make him a monk, make him a Kensai, have fun with it.
Sure.
Right?
Love
James,
it.
what do you got?
I would do a Draconborn or Blood too, but I would do it as a rogue that was raised by a Ravenite, and they betrayed their clan. They betrayed the Draconblood, and they were the spark that led to revolution. I would take it separate from the lore of Exandria, where the Chromatic Conclave did it. Have just a revolution that was sparked by this one player that is a rogue, or one or two. They gave the right information because they saw who essentially is their mother or father or whatever be tortured, beat, enslaved, and they just couldn't handle it anymore.
Would they feel some guilt towards turning their back on, like, those who at least look like them?
Because I feel the way they were raised, being raised by the other side, they will see each one as no different. They will see them as one whole clan that just got separated somewhere along the line and is now abusing each other.
Yeah.
So they think there's no difference between either side. So it's not really betraying my bloodline. It's just saving my adoptive mother's bloodline.
Cool.
I like it.
Do we have any other thoughts for Dragonborn before we wrap it up, guys? I personally really like Dragonborn. I like how they feel. I like the lore that they put in with these very clan-centric collectives of Dragonborn. That they're one of the few races that specifically call out their lack of reliance on the gods. And I find that really, really cool, especially since Bahamut is like one of the most integral, universal gods in Dungeons and Dragons, regardless of what edition you play. So, like, the fact that one of the easiest to implement gods in the universe, it would play such a role with the race that more often than not will want nothing to do with him is very interesting to me. It
feels strange, but
it feels very strange. There's this weird dichotomy.
Even
there.
On the flip side with Tiamat,
yeah,
where you would think that they would be diehard.
I don't know. For me, kind of the more I think about it, the more I hear about Dragonborn lore, because before this I didn't actually know that much. I feel like they were more of like a genetic experiment in this day and age, where someone took the CRISPR like gene DNA editor and said a little bit of lizard, a little bit of human. What do I get? And Bahamut and Tiamat would be two examples of creatures powerful enough to do that.
Yeah,
and I see it being like a I think you're completely correct. That's why I liken them to Warforged. Like, they were created for a purpose, but I think
I was just knowledge.
The dragon gods. Yeah, sure, but it could also have been for some war. Like, they needed to make army. Like, they need to make an army, so they're going to create their own. But because they gave them a lot of will, which is translated with that +1 to charisma, they just decided to do their own thing, right? And Bahamut and Tiamat, being who they are and where they are, we're just like, yeah, I guess, sure, I'll get your back. Because still, every single Dragonborn does make a conscious decision on what side of that battle they lie on, right? And I mean, your clan is going to come before that, sure, but that's still a very conscious decision you make for a race of people that are fairly irreligious. That's interesting to me. So I don't know, man. I like them. I still think it's a crime that they don't have stock dark vision. I still would give it to them.
It's so interesting that they would be the race that is not that religious, but seemingly everybody else is.
Yeah.
So going through that world.
I mean, you got to look at it like the gods in this world walk the earth. There is quantifiable evidence.
There's no question about
there,
existence,
right?
In D&D. Yeah.
It's not like in our real world where there is that question. So like, there's not going on faith.
Yeah.
There is just I've devoted myself to this entity, and that entity thus rewards me with power. That is what religion's like in 5e. It's nothing like what we have.
Yeah.
With this, a warlock might be closer.
I've played games where players are like, "Oh, I'm atheist." I'm like, "How?"
That's not even really an option.
You can't be atheist in 5e.
You can be.
You're playing with clerics who you've seen call their god by name.
There is a way.
Power.
There is a way. You are atheistic not in the sense that you believe the gods don't exist. You are atheistic in the sense where you believe the gods are not necessarily gods. They're just incredibly powerful beings.
Right.
Right? And that's where fantasy atheism, where the gods are so tangible, can play in. Right? So I like it. Anyways, that's going to be it for our discussion on Dragonborn. We've got a lot more ground to cover with playable races as we move forward, so check back regularly to see what inspirations and insights we'll have for you in the future. Next week, we'll finally be revisiting our conversation on druids, and it should be pretty exciting because it's been a whopping 117 episodes since the last time we sang with songbirds and hugged a tree on this podcast.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. If you'd like to support us, we have a donate button on our website, www.itsamimic.com, as well as a store full of some awesome merch. We also rely on word of mouth to get news of the podcast out there to the community, so please pass the word to everyone you know that we're available on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as most podcast apps. Thanks again for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.
This has been an It's a Mimic production. Inquiries, requests, and questions for our mailbags can be sent to info@itsamimic.com.
So I want to talk about one more type of Dragonborn.
There's another.
The Gemstone Dragonborn. It's in Matt Colville's book, Strongholds Followers. Okay, so there is some differences in the stats and their size and some other elements to them. But what is interesting about them is they have limited psionic powers.
Oh, cool.
So if you guys at home would like to do more research on the Gemstone Dragons themselves, you can see the full breakdown in Strongholds and Followers of the psionic powers that the dragons have. But the Gemstone Dragonborns, they have available to them the psionic power of Flay, causes psychic damage that can be amplified by adding more charges to it, essentially. So it causes psychic damage that you can add more damage to depending on how many points you want to add to.
Okay.
So they have the psionic ability of Amplify as well, which means that they can essentially focus their mind so that for the next minute they can add more damage. They can add another 3d8 psychic damage to their melee attacks.
Cool. Well, let's roll initiative here real quick and ask, do you like the idea of the Gemstone Dragonborn?
I got a 2.
20.
I got a 10. So James, Gemstone Dragonborn, do you like him?
I really do.
Cool.
They're the one Dragonborn that
Thanks,
interests
James.
me.
Would you allow a player to play one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Even with the psionics?
Yeah, it can be mitigated. Things can hit harder.
Okay.
And they're limited psionics as well.
It's
They're
very
not-
very
limited. It's
limited,
not
yeah.
broken.
And we know
like gold.
Dragonborn are underpowered. So anyway, Dan, you go.
Yeah, no,
before.
I'm with you. Like, I like this feel. I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into the stats, but having like the more like reverent psychic dragon, like I've always complained that dragons in 5e don't carry that magical feel to them
They
as
don't.
well as they should.
Yeah.
This guy has a little bit more of that really translates well. So I like them for that.
Yeah.
And 100%, yeah, I'd let I trust Matt Colville and his ability to design.
Yeah.
And I probably wouldn't play one, but I would definitely let a player play one.
I would play one, but I would play one that's a sorcerer that thinks they're a wizard and take the rituals casting and have wizard casting spells. So they'll try to cast a spell during combat as a wizard. Won't be able to happen, so they'll just cast what they can, which is a sorcerer spell. But when they sit down after the fact, be like, why the hell didn't this spell work? They'll essentially ritual cast it and it will work. So they'll be like, see, I can do the wizard spell.
Yeah.
You're handcuffed by the amount of spells that can be cast as a ritual, but at the same time, yeah.
You get enough to at least role play it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
I wouldn't prevent somebody from playing it as a player character, but I think I would find it more interesting if this was an NPC. The Gemstone Dragon that comes hovering down, and
these guys are so rare in comparison to even Dragonborn, which are rare in and of themselves.
It's like finding Mewtwo, something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, there'd be 2 in my world.
Yeah.
If I had
A good
player
one and an
character,
evil one.
If they had a player character, there'd be one other.
Yeah.
2 in the world, that's it.
Yeah.
And when one dies, another is born. That's how I would have it work. So it's always 2.
I like it.
Campaign has been born. Beauty. Sounds like a band.
It really does.
Yeah. And like a bad British band.
Which, as
We're phenomenal at music.
which is Terry said,
Sometimes.
Sometimes. What?
Sometimes.
As opposed to who? Canada?
Canada's got some pretty...
Canada celebrates their own musicians, and everybody else goes, yeah, Bryan Adams that one time in the 90s with Mel C from the Spice Girls, a British group.
I have problems with you.
Avril Lavigne, she doesn't age. She's doing all right. So.
I mean, Celine Dion...
Yeah.
Nickelback, I heard, was pretty big.
Shut the fuck
Sadly.
up, Nickelback. Don't talk to me about Nickelback. I drew through their hometown once.
Some 41.
Yeah.
All right, some 41. You can have some 41, yeah. So,
Shania Twain.
There's a few.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
They're
Canada's
fewer
got
and far between.
No,
for
great
sure.
big
yeah, but
C,
nobody's making documentary after documentary of that
5440,
time.
Tragically
Shania Twain,
Hip.
Fuck off, tragically. I'm telling
Do not.
That's a Canadian treasure.
Do
you
not.
Say anything.
I know you
said
are
no.
about to be in
Nobody-
trouble. I will take a shit on the Beatles.
I never
Do
even
not
heard
make
of
me do
Tragic
I will
Hip.
shit on your car.
I never even heard of Tragic Hip until 2009 when I came to Canada. Nobody outside of the Dominion of Canada even
We
knows
don't give a
Tragic
fuck.
Hip.
You be quiet about the Canadian treasure.
Even North Dakota on the border has got, well, they don't fucking know.
North
They
Dakota?
think they are. But they're going, it's like literally next door to Canada, not that they know. And they're going, tragically who? Tragically who?
No, I'm mad at you now. You're not allowed to speak.
Thanks for listening. Bye.